Hey everyone. It's a bit of a gray day here in Stockholm. And so dressed appropriately today. But thankfully, we still have our good friend coffee. So, cheers, coffee, tea, whatever floats your boat. It's time for another topic. And today's topic is a bit of a broad one, which is why I kind of went with this title, right? Valve and the Golden Bullet. Because I feel like if any of you have played 007, GoldenEye, that golden gun, right? Boom. And it's all over. And this is going to be a bit of a rambly one, just because I think that there's a lot of things going around in my head when I'm thinking about the upcoming topic, which is obviously players and their relationship with Valve. And Valve's relationship to CSGO. Because it's there's been just nonstop talk about Valve, right, recently. And it just so happened that last night on the North American broadcast of Pro League, Dazed came back, right? And came back. He's been around. He's been streaming, and I think that's the main thing, right? That's why Dazed, Steel, for example, Swag, even they get a lot more attention than some of the other pros that happened to get banned at the time, right? Because they weren't the only ones to get banned for match fixing. But last night, basically, it came up that Dazed happened to be on the desk, right? And everybody's, going wild about his analysis of the games. Dazed still plays the game. Dazed is still, in S rank or whatever, and Face It and Pro League and all that sort of stuff, right? Not in Pro League, obviously, but in Face It, FPL. So, he's still playing the game. He's still current with the game, right? He hasn't given up on that front. But it always feels like whenever we see them get involved again, or something comes up with Steel, with Dazed, with Swag in particular, it's just a knife in, it's just twisting that knife. That wound never really closed, right? And I know I've been outspoken in the past on Dazed and Steel in particular, right? There was a video that when I was streaming long time ago, did a video where I basically just blew up and I shouted about Dazed and Steel and how they should burn and bring Swag back and all that jazz. But since it's been quite some time, and since then I've pretty much changed my opinion on the matter after getting many more nights, moons, time to think about the scenario. Definitely think that right now the situation definitely does not favor them, and they are being punished, I think, in a much harsher way than they should. Right? This is like life. This is basically just the death penalty. They've been giving the death penalty for I don't know. In the end, if you're comparing the money, right, or if this is where it gets gray, right, where it's just, is this a sort of thing that needs to be stamped out completely and utterly, drop the nuke on it, so that if anybody even thinks about match fixing in the future, they have to think that their career is effectively over. And that's the approach that Valve took. And so we've talked about this for ages, but the reason why I wanted to talk about it today is because there is still something, being done. It's not just every now and again on the Reddit where, it gets outspoken and people bring it up again, and then topics, comments, people speak about it, right? But just recently, and this was on the front page, I believe, was an article that was released by Esports Observer, right? And I'll put the link in the description in case you missed it. But it's an article that was released based off of FXO, right? One of the Epsilon players who was banned for a year, and then got the ban. Basically, he was banned for a year, and then Valve actually made the ban indefinite, like they did for iBUYPOWER, for the iBUYPOWER players, right? And so he got lumped into that same boat as Dazed, as Swag, as Steel, AZK as well. AZK is actually a guy who completely dropped off the face of the planet afterwards, and he's now resurfacing in Overwatch, right? He's one of the players who's made the shift. Steel streams a lot of Overwatch as well, and so these guys are still doing things. But CS, obviously, apart from just random streams, not so much. But this video that was released is basically FXO, and I think that this is one of the big plays, at least from what I've heard around it, right? Is that this is one of the last big plays that they're pushing for the banned players. FXO took point on it. He did a personalized interview that is on the page, and there's a whole write-up about it as well. But he goes so far as to say, that he is willing to do anything, which is basically what the other players have said as well, that they would do anything to come back and be able to play again, right? Whether that be, community service, paying fines, prize money, all sorts of things, just so that they could come back and play again. They'll take the hit. Absolutely, which they've definitely. I mean, they've been bulldozed so far, right? Like they have just been completely and utterly destroyed, and so, or at least in the competitive sense, we'll put it that way. Because I'm sure that Valve, when they think about it, they're thinking, well, I mean, they can still play the game. We haven't stopped them from playing the game. But they just, they can still stream and they can still make a living off of it, which is exactly what, Steel and Days do in particular. For example, FXO still plays for a team, Millennium. But it's just, they're completely and utterly destroyed as far as a professional career playing for a pro team, competing at the top in the World Championships, which are sponsored by Valve. That's it. It's over, right? And so when it comes down to it, I think that this is one of those last gasps, right? Where FXO has gone through the trouble of pushing for this video to be made, pushing for this article, sending all of this to Valve as well. And as far as I know, not receiving a single word back in reply, which is usually Valve's, MO. Once Valve make a decision, they usually stick by it. I mean, we've seen very, very rare sorts of scenarios where Valve have gone back on their decision. The R8 can be seen as, there was this community uproar that forced Valve to listen to us and make the changes. But if you look back on it and take a step back, I mean, the gun was so OP broken that Valve, I think, would have made the change regardless of the uproar. But that's whatever. The point being, Valve very rarely go back on their decisions, right? And it seems like they want to stick with this one. And this also ties into what's been going on recently, the hot topics. I mean, WESA just announced their player union or their player, round table, whatever it is, that's going to be tied into WESA, that's headed up by Vugo with a bunch of other players on it, Freiberg, Nyak, the manager for G2, right? There is a council going on there that will apparently be tied into WESA. And with the PEA, you have the players being directly involved in the profit sharing and directly involved with the decision making of the league as well. And so you have these two scenarios where you would expect perhaps that these would be the governing bodies. And this is where it gets really interesting, as far as this is just an old argument as well. And it's just old as sin, right? At this point, we've talked about it so much, where it comes down to you can try and establish rules, but in the esports world, in the gaming world, and in the pro gaming world, at the end of the day, the developer has the final call on pretty much everything, right? And so that's what's really interesting with to me right now is, it's not apathy, it's not just but whatever, look away, turn your head away, but when WESA, based off of trying to order my thoughts. Sorry, it is a bit jumbled because it's just all over the place when it comes to thinking about this topic. But when it comes to these orgs that are coming up and that are saying they're going to improve standards across the board. They're going to get tournament regulations down, punishments, etc., for infringing on rules, all this sort of thing. I mean, that's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, do they have any real power when, let's say, something like match fixing comes around, right? Like, that is something that one of these orgs, or both, or all tournaments basically, should have a say in. But at the end of the day, Valve are the ones who are just like, actually, no, fuck you. And there's say, for example, if WESA or PEA were to establish some sort of rule set for match fixing or for cheating, VAC'd, right? If you get VAC'd, and WESA, PEA, the leagues, the coordinating leagues that come around, they come up with they have their standards when it comes to cheating, right? And ESL have had this in the past. I mean, Simple obviously had to deal with that back in the day, but I mean, they have their own standalone things. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, it does feel like it's Valve's decision, because they kind of force it, and Valve know this. Valve are like, you guys can do whatever you want with your leagues, but we know that we run the biggest show in town, which is the major, which every team, it's our world championship basically. Every team is going to be playing with the major in their sights, right? They're going to be building their teams to be the most competitive possible when that major rolls around to win a major. And then the shifts come in the leagues and all that. But I mean, now it's just leagues are coming out of the woodwork. So you really care that much about a league? Obviously, there's a prize money, but past that, the prestige, etc. I feel like a lot of the players are just going to feel like, it's just another league. But when a major rolls around, hell, this year we've only had 2 majors. So, past years, we've had 3 majors a year and still not that many of them, but, 3 majors. Now there's 2 majors. So SK basically have got a lock on 2016 as far as majors are concerned. That's huge, right? And so nobody can contest that this year. They have to wait until 2017. So Valve know that they have the best show in town. They have the majors. And that they kind of just force the team's hands. No team is going to, they've also made it pretty clear that, Valve organize. You can't have these band players coaching. You can't have these band players analyzing. You can't have them, hell, in Steel's case, observing. They can't have anything to do with the majors. And so, when you're a tournament organizer or an org that actually runs teams, are you going to make an investment? Because that's what it is. You're investing in someone, excuse me, to build your product. Are you going to make an investment in somebody who's going to be who's just completely shut out of the biggest show in the year, basically? No. And none of these are. And so when it comes to WESA and PEA, that's where I'm kind of just like, I'm trying to take a little bit of a step back, and I'm waiting to see how it plays out. Do I have high hopes for them? Yes, sure. They can improve standards as far as team relations are concerned, as far as like the relationship between players, teams, and tournament organizers. Sure. But what I wonder is what's going to happen when something like, again, the coach ruling comes around. That's the most recent one. What's going to happen in the future once these player councils, et cetera, are truly established? You can make all the rules you want, but it feels to me still like Valve get the final say on everything. And they just decide, right, okay, yes, you have my blessing on this rule, good, blessed, go have fun. Or, we don't want coaches because that misrepresents the game, the way that we see the game should be played. So, no coaches. Yeah, or no coaches as in-game leaders. We'll be precise, right? No coaches as in-game leaders. And then it doesn't matter. I mean, there were players and managers, et cetera, Vugo, et cetera, who were talking about how Fallen, right? They were talking about how they were supposed to have a discussion with Valve, right, after this coach ruling was made. Because apparently the coach ruling was even made before, there was some back and forth between Valve, the players, the TOs, before the ruling was made. And then after the ruling was made, the players obviously chose to revolt at the decision, tried to band together, tried to have a conversation. Apparently there was supposed to be some kind of conversation between Valve and the tournament organizers and the players. And have we heard anything since? No, we haven't. And so, yeah, that this whole thing right now, it just kind of makes you wonder where we're going, right? And it also makes you wonder just where we are, where this is the reality of esports or competitive gaming, right? Is that at the end of the day, it's the game's developer who seems to have the final say on everything because it's their IP. And I've said that in the past when talking about game developer involvement, tournaments, etc. Right? It's the developer that has the final say because at the end of the day, they are saying, right, you have permission to use our game. And so, yeah, I mean, now we have to see, is something going to come from this FXO page that he's definitely sent to Valve and tried to show to Valve, listen, there's deep regret here, or is there just, or is looking for forgiveness a complete and utter waste of time? I mean, this is harsh, and this is nothing. I mean, nowhere near the same scale, obviously, but it's how like prisoners. It's how prisoners act in sort of certain situations. No, obviously, totally different scale here. But I'm going off on a tangent where I was watching a documentary on one of the most difficult prisons in the world, which is a prison that's located in the middle of fuck all nowhere in the middle of Russia, and that was made after they had banned the death penalty, basically. And so if you're in this prison, you are in there for life, basically. 25 years to life is what you get in there. And it's really interesting to see because they obviously the way this documentary is set up is they're interviewing different lifers, basically different people who are there, and it's just like a wildly different opinion one case to the next as far as what they expect of themselves, the punishment that they receive, and should they seek forgiveness or not. And there was one young guy who was obviously, just like I've tried to, I have to live with this. It's the punishment, like I am punished because I have to live with this past that I constantly relive every day. And the one thing that I want in life is my dream would be to ask forgiveness. And, And then you go to this older OG, basically, prison guy who's basically spent 40 years in prison. And he's just like, no, there is no forgiveness. If you're here, it's because you deserve it. There is no forgiveness. The only forgiveness is to go out and hang yourself or something. I was like, damn. Talk about like the just complete and opposite sides of the spectrum, where it's just like, why would you ask for forgiveness? And so I know, tangent, really harsh, but in this sort of scenario, right? It's just feels like Valve have just reinstated the death penalty for these guys' careers. They're just like, actually, you're dead, and there's no coming back because we aren't communicating on anything. We aren't saying we've reviewed the cases and this is where we're at on it. We still feel like right now our decision was sound. This is the decision we stick by, and there is not going to be anything coming back from it. And after talking with the developers at events, that is still their opinion. They're like, we made it perfectly clear. It's an indefinite ban. There is no, it's a ban and it stands. We've made ourselves very clear in our eyes, right, that there is no coming back from this. And so, you might as well just go and look for something else. You aren't going to jail. Like, this is the other way that they see it, right? Is that the players, you're not going to jail. You're just losing your career, basically, and you can go and do something else now. And so, they don't see it as, this is actually that person's, it's just like a career. Oh yeah, just replace it, right? You just go out and start a new one overnight. I mean, now it's been a significant amount of time, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm being too dark here in this video, where I'm just or too dark or too cynical. I mean, it's funny because I talk to Duncan or Thorin fairly often, right? And one day I was just like, I think I went too dark, and Thorin's just like, is there such a thing? just so no, there isn't. And so I wonder now, what the future holds as far as these sorts of scenarios and how they're going to be resolved if WESA, PEA, if it's all just I don't want to say a waste of time, but if it's just, silliness. Because if Valve don't cooperate, if they say this is our vision, if you don't align with our vision, well then tough beans, right? If that's how it's going to be, then that kind of just takes away all power for decision making, for rulings, etc., from WESA and PA to a certain extent. I mean, it definitely weakens them, because if we have another case of match fixing, or if we have something else that hasn't even been done yet, I don't know, actual doping or something like that. They come up with a drug that makes you able to hit headshots like Scream. Consistently. I don't know what happens then if WESA and PEA, they rule one thing, but then Valve come in and say, actually no, we rule this. What is it just going to just pull the scene apart? Is that what's going on, or is that what we get to look forward to here, or is there going to be some form of communication where we do want to establish this as something? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that Valve really just want to have as little involvement. They want to spend as much time as possible developing the game and working on the game and trying to come up with new maps, new gun sounds, but also obviously when a bug gets fixed and something is actually clearly made reproducible for them to look at, this bug, this is how you get the bug. They see that, they fix it, right? We just saw that. They fix it overnight. If they can get it something that it's like reproducible, that they can reproduce immediately and say, okay, great, let's study that, boom, fix it, done, right? That's what they want to do. All of this other stuff is unfortunately something that they have no interest in doing. The problem is that they've caught themselves because they're stuck in it now, where they've actually made a decision. And so now they have to be held accountable for that decision, and they're going to be constantly consulted on that decision in the future and any future decisions that they make tied to it. And so it's they're caught in this gray area now, where it's like, we don't want to be involved, but we have become involved, and so we're stuck. All right. Just rambling twice as long as it should be, but that's it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Have a fantastic evening, and yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.